Hey guys, it's Nate and this is the Nader Tater channel. Today I'm going to talk about how I made the wood cookie flooring. So I have these, call them wood cookies. They're tree slices. These are 1.5 inches thick. And I put them down on the floor, polyurethane them, and I put concrete in between them to make kind of a rustic outdoor floor for this gnome home. If you want to see other videos of the gnome home, check out my channel. Feel free to subscribe. But today I'll go through step by step how I did it, as well as video time lapse and details throughout it. The cost for this one, it's about an 8-foot by 11-foot floor, so just under 100 square feet, and it was about 150 bucks. I had all the wood for free. Had trees that were cut down on my property, and I traded with a guy some logs, and he actually gave me back some wood cookies to build it. And then you know, the polyurethane was like 30 bucks for a gallon of that. Concrete, I use self-leveling concrete, and then liquid nails to glue it down. So not a whole lot of materials, but it does take quite a bit of labor. So okay guys, let's go inside. We'll get a peek of it as it's all finished, and then we will go through all the steps of how I got there. So here we are inside. You can see, you know, I have all of the wood. They're the same thickness, like say 1.5 inches, so right up against the sill plate of the walls. And then you know, I polyurethaned it, and like I said, I did self-leveling concrete poured in between it. I did dye the concrete to make it brown, to try to not have it the light gray standard color. But I'll kind of go through how I did this, and you can watch it and see. If you have any questions, feel free to write some comments, and I will answer them on the video. I've already have the large wood cookies, so these are slices of large tree trunks. Now I'm going to fill in that space between the larger pieces with smaller stuff. So here I have a small assortment of limbs or smaller trees, from about 6 inches all the way down to, you know, less than 1 inch. I'm not going to get too fine, but I'll use some of the bigger stuff to fill in the big gaps. And to do that, I'm going to set up a stop on the miter saw, so it's exactly at a 1.5 inch thickness. And then that way, even if I have a little bit of a curve to the wood, so long as I keep the cuts parallel to each other, they'll sit flat and the flooring will be all level. So the first step here is I'm going to take some cutters and take off some of these small twigs off of the sides of these things, so I can get them closer to the fence on the miter saw. And then I'll get going and just make a little assembly line of cutting out a lot of these guys, and I'll go find where they fit in the puzzle. So let's do a time lapse now, and we'll see how it goes. Alright, hey guys, I'm down here at the gnome home now. I just cut the pieces of wood, so let's go in there and see how it looks. So here we are inside. Now you can see the flooring is all the big pieces of cookies, as they call them. So basically it's wood slices, and you can see here I have my bucket of various sizes. A lot of them are 2-3 inches, some smaller, some bigger. And so the goal here is to start placing these in between all of the big pieces, so that I start to get you know, less area to fill in there between them. Okay guys, one more thing about these wood cookies. You know, obviously when you cut down a tree, it has a lot of moisture in it, so I've actually been drying this stuff out. You can see here I have a dehumidifier I've been running, so I kind of set this up as a little bit of a mini kiln, where you know, I reduce the humidity, and also it increases the temperature in here, so it's warmer than ambient. and that dries it out. Now you're still going to get cracks. As you can see, you have lots of pieces that split, but the goal was to try to keep them at least in one piece. I had a couple that actually split all the way apart, but for the most part I'm pretty happy. Gives a little bit of character, and you know, so these other pieces, these new ones I cut, the small ones, they were already dead limbs for a while, so they're already pretty dry. But something to keep in mind, if you go cut down a tree, you can't just take it and put it in there. You have to let it dry. They've been in here for about a month drying, and they started at around 25% humidity. Got one of these little tools. It has two little spike probes that you stick into the wood, and you can test the humidity in them. Right now this stuff's about 7-8%, which is dry, so it's good enough to glue and start doing the rest of the work too. Okay, this one, the sound wasn't working, but it's too funny to leave out. This was me after sanding. You can see it's a complete mess. That's me being in a little enclosed 8 by 11 foot box. So you know, we're earplugs, safety glasses, and a respirator to prevent from breathing in all that stuff. Certainly probably the least fun part of this project. Okay guys, so as you just saw, I put all the wood cookies out there. I glued them down with liquid nails, just the tube adhesive. I let that dry and cure overnight. Then I went over it with my belt sander. The belt sander had 36 grit sandpaper on it. So I went over all of the surfaces there to try to clean up the wood. After that, I vacuumed it all up. Try to get as much dust off as I could, and then I went through and I went with the polyurethane floor. It's designed for floor, so it's more durable for walking on. And that was a semi-gloss. They make it in a satin, a semi-gloss, and a gloss. I chose semi-gloss just to give it a little bit more of a rustic feel, but it's going to hold up better than a satin would. So, and I went ahead and did the polyurethane before I did any of the concrete for a couple reasons. One, it's much easier for me to roll it out, and I don't have to worry about getting it on the concrete and making the concrete look splotchy. The second reason is, as I pour the concrete out of this trash can, and I'm going to try to pour it all between the wood cookies. But as I do that, I'm sure I'm going to get some of it on the wood, the top surface, and I'll wipe that off with a rag. So I have some rags here that I'll get wet and I'll wipe them off as I can. But with a polyurethane on it, it'll keep the concrete from actually soaking in and staining the wood. This will let me hopefully wipe it off easier and carry on. Okay, so the instructions say to add the 5.5 quarts of water first. So I'm going to add that in here. And then next I take the concrete bag, actually, before I do that I gotta actually take this coloration and I pour this in, so I shook it up really good. So this is a dark brown coloration. I put that in the water. Now my water's all brown. Probably going to mix it up just a little bit, just to make sure that's all mixed in well. Okay. Now I'm going to mix it up for 2 minutes. Alright, so I mixed it up for a little while. Now, it's basically a chocolate brown color. It looks kind of like milk chocolate or chocolate pudding. And it's a very liquid consistency, so it's nothing like normal concrete with the aggregate in there. But I'm going to put this down. This is the mixing paddle. I'll give you a little view of it here so you can see what it looks like. So it's very liquidy, as you can see. And now we will get ready to pour it in. Alright, now I have this guy. I'm going to get ready to start pouring it in here. Like I said, it's going to be kind of messy of a job, but try to keep it as clean as I can. Again, so the goal here is just to keep as much of it in between all the wood as I can. But as needed, if I get a couple drips, like I have right here, I can just wipe them up with a wet rag and keep them off from staining the wood. Alright, so let me get going. I'm going to do all these areas a little bit at a time. Okay guys, so it's been a day since I did the concrete pour. You can see it looks like a mess in here. You know, it wasn't obviously easy to keep the concrete off the wood, but I tried to wipe it up some as I poured it with a wet rag just to thin out how much was on top of the wood. And I think for the most part I'll be able to use a little bit of elbow grease with a wet towel now after it's dried to go in here and just wipe it up. And so, you know, the reason why I went ahead and sanded and polyurethane the wood was for the hope that I could come in here and wipe most of it up without having to resand and restain everything. Any places where it's thicker, I'm going to have to use a putty knife or a little scraper to get it off, and then for now it's just a lot of elbow grease to try to wipe all this up with some rags and a mop.